It's October in fall and time for the harvest season.
Look at this beautiful place setting. And this is at Osprey Village. It's a thrift shop. And you can come here and buy this whole beautiful setting and take it to your apartment or your condo.
And by doing that, you're helping out a very important cause and a very important issue in our society.
And we're going to talk about that today. Our guests for today are, we have Jerry Manuel, who's the Executive Director, David Greene, the Director of Business Development, and Channing Heiss, the Director of Communications. I think, Lisa, we have a great show.
We do, so stick around so you can learn all about the important causes here and all the great things at the thrift shop.
This is 843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
.843 TV, where the Low Country comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
Welcome to .843 TV at the Osprey Village Thrift on Main, where there's so many wonderful things here to come and check out. But more importantly, there's a wonderful cause, and we're going to be talking with the gentleman here, with Jerry and with David, all about the important services that you provide. So thanks for having us back.
Thanks for coming.
Big project coming down the pike is the Osprey Village housing development. Share with us, with those who may not know, a little bit about what that is and where we are.
Well, it's becoming an exciting project right now. We are probably as close to breaking ground and starting the infrastructure methods for the village itself here in 2020. It's been a long time coming, but we have stayed the course, and we have been able to reach the potential of seeing our dream come true, a village with a purpose for folks with developmental disabilities, adults, so they have a place to live, work, and play, and a choice of theirs that will be probably unique for not only the Low Country, but for the nation.
Well, we talked about that off camera a little bit, and I want to sort of bring that up. This is unique. Osprey Village is unique in its design, in its location, and everything about it, even when you're looking for your funding, the economies, correct? So you're blazing a new trail.
Yes, we are, and doing it in a way where we hope it becomes a solid local and government partnership, you know, a local state working together, which to this point we've seen some success, but we need to grow it. We need for those folks to step forward and give us the resources to build the village with either grants or donations or individuals that can help us find the resources to be challenged for the folks that we're serving, because families are really desperate to know what's going to happen for their sons and daughters as they grow older, both them and they, and where do they turn. Right now, their options are limited, if available at all. As we have seen from offering respite, the desire for that, to have that available to them, that allows us to certify for that, but that the village is the real goal. And the real reason why we created Thrift on Main, WHHI-TV, Thrift, that are big supporters of our organization.
In a sense, listening to this, you could call it a crisis for those folks who are affected. Now, David, you're one of them. You've got a son who utilizes some of the services now. And share with us how, we were talking about PEP and the other more well-known organizations on the island. How do you all work together or hope to work together better down the line?
Right. My son's 36, has autism, so we actually moved here from the Pittsburgh area so he could be a member of PEP, Programs for Exceptional People, the day program, which is now out in the Bluffton area in Sheridan Park. In the past, everybody was pretty much doing their own thing. And you know, they'd have their fundraiser, we'd have ours, somebody else would have another one, and we really didn't coordinate anything. So about 5-6 years ago, I proposed to the Human Services Alliance that we form a disabilities coalition, so all these organizations can coordinate and collaborate much better. And so that has been moving forward, and especially more recently, it seems like we're really starting to get a little bit of momentum to do that. So my son, for example, receives respite and job training services from Osprey Village. He goes to PEP one day a week, and then he goes, this morning he's out at Heroes on Horseback doing equestrian training. He participates in Special Olympics and Recreation, the SOAR program. He participates in Pockets Full of Sunshine, arts and crafts program. It's a couple times a month.
I know, he does have
Yeah, I mean, we're running him
Busy
everywhere.
week, yeah.
And that's just those organizations plus our involvement with our church, and he plays keyboard there along with me playing guitar and so forth. So having him involved actively in the community can't happen just with one organization. It has to be all of us working together, and that's really the goal of the coalition, and it's starting to come together and really get some momentum there.
And I believe the long-term goal of the village is a reason for organizations to coalesce and to be a focus for the future and make it known at all levels in this community of the need. Because right now, our folks are not really recognized in this community as a viable need by government or agencies, or they're all independent. And we need to highlight not only the care that Osprey Village wants to provide, but the desperate need of the folks with disabilities in this area.
Right, and that's a good point, because I think people are unaware. When you think about Hilton Head Island or the Low Country, you picture, you know, maybe some wealth, some beaches, and beautiful world-class resort. But there's a reality of the folks that live here, and maybe share a little bit about that.
Yeah, when a person has a disability, it's not based on their income, their culture, their background. It covers all bases. Everyone's involved with this. And the requests we're getting are people who are seeking support and help because everybody else has turned them down. There has not been the openness that we do for looking at the crisis we face with affordable housing or the crisis we face with employment issues. There is a crisis for people with disabilities who are living sometimes nowhere but on the streets because they have no other means for support, or their families are living together confined in their house because the parent is so old and there's no support available for them. And this opportunity of putting them close to them in a village, cared for in the Low Country, as opposed to be moving hundreds of miles away if that ever is possible, is so unique and needed in a desperate way for this community.
Yeah. This is a very important subject, and we have to take a quick break, but we're going to be back with more 843 TV.
And we're back with 843 TV, and now we have David Greene, who is the Director of Business Development. But before we start exactly what we're going to talk about, I think we need another conversation. Let's talk about the population. In our first segment, we were talking about all the wonderful things, but who are we talking about, and who's our population?
We're talking about people with developmental disabilities, which covers many facets, autism, cerebral palsy, people with Down syndrome, a whole variety. But we're also talking about adults. So prior to being adults, they're usually being served within the educational process or in some other manner, shape, or form. But once they turn 22, there is nothing. They turn and wonder what's next. And that's where they seek us out or seek out their agencies. And that's where the coalition becomes vital in offering a understanding of what's in this community. But there is no lifelong place for them to live.
So let me ask you this: how are the government programs? Does South Carolina offer them? Are we challenged in this area?
We're very challenged in this area in South Carolina, unfortunately. We have had tremendous understanding by Senators Tom Davis and other of our legislators, and we've received some grants from and through them. But at the same time, the grants that got approved for us were vetoed by the governor because he didn't think it was necessary. So there is a challenge for families, and that's probably the bigger part beyond Osprey, and that is bringing families together to let legislators know what their needs are.
You know, I've been to some of your events, and I have to say, a lot of the families have adult children who have some sort of problem in disability, but the community is so strong, the support is so strong for each other. I think that's wonderful, and you've been able to put Osprey Village, the idea of it, to action. And now, let's talk about you, David. Let's talk about where we're going with you.
Sure. The development of Osprey Village, the neighborhood with a purpose, as we call it, is starting to finally gain some momentum. We had the land donated to us out in the East Argent project, so we've got 25 acres we can build on, a total of 63 acres in a parcel there. It sits about a mile back in off of Route 170 across from Oldfield, and they are building a roadway back to that, which should be complete this month, we're hearing. So sometime later we'll actually be able to go out and see what it looks like and what's there and what we had donated to us. It's old, Union Camp pine tree type of terrain there. But the project for us now is what are we going to build there, how are we going to design it, and so forth. So we've got the architectural plans for the homes to come up with, and the other, this community center and so forth. We've got the land plan, how are we going to lay it all out, how are we going to phase this in over time. Obviously, we're not going to build out 25 acres all at once. And then the engineering, where the roads and water and sewer lines and all that going to go, and all the permitting. I mean, if anybody has built a house or had one built for them, this is a lengthy process. So realistically, from the time we can set foot on the property until the time we can actually start moving dirt and putting things in the ground is probably a year at this point. But the need that we have now is to get those experts on our team that can help us with getting that project moving forward. People who have architectural, land planning, other experience, and the funding to be able to pay them for those who we need to engage as our professional persons.
And so are we in that process? Are we looking for the funding to put this in place, or do we have it in place with the funding continuing?
We've got a couple of grant applications out that we're pretty hopeful about getting. One locally, one with more of a national grant that we think we have a good chance of getting. But also we've had interaction with some of the major utilities in the area, like Palmetto Electric, like Hargray, and some others that may be able to donate some of their services, or for example, Palmetto Electric could be the trench master for all the utilities that have to go in there, assuming we're going to do an all-electric community, which is what our plans are. So all those things have to come in place, plus we've got to raise funds on our own to make that all happen.
And then that allows us to get matching funds from the state through their grant program for housing.
And that's just the capital side of it.
Right.
Then you've got the services side of it, which is actually the bigger challenge in a lot of ways, because right now there's several thousand people on waiting lists for services across the state. And in particular, you can get services if you live in your own home and just need some support services like respite or day program and so forth. But there's also residential services, which is a whole separate waiting list with a couple thousand people on it, and they haven't assigned any new funding slots in 5 years. And you can imagine, as the population of the state grows and people age, those numbers keep going up, and so that's really the bigger problem statewide that we're trying to also, how do we make that work for the folks that we want to serve here.
You mentioned a lot of needs that are big picture.
Right.
What can the average resident in the community do to help? Now, of course, they can also make donation. What else can they do? They can come in maybe to this shop and
then buy something and volunteer.
We do that.
Volunteer, participate in our fundraisers, learn more about what is going on, not only in the Osprey Village concept, but in the world of developmental disabilities in the Low Country and the need for that. And also to know that there are families that need support and help that they may want to come on and volunteer with us. So there's multiple ways. It's more, I think what we would like to see a lot of people in this area do is educate themselves about this. And then again, know that we're available to speak to any organization would like to know more about us and more about our population, which we enjoy doing, David and I.
Well, we want to thank you very much for joining us. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but we
it could
are
go on
running
for
out of
hours,
time.
yes.
So we will see you again, I'm sure.
Yes, and we thank you for your time.
And we'll have more to talk about as you progress.
As we hope so.
And stay around the shop.
And you stick around too for the last episode segment coming up on this episode of 843 TV. We're back on 843 TV at Osprey Village on Main on Thrift, and joining us now is Channing Heiss, the Director of Communication. Channing, share a little bit about your background and your role here.
Well, I've been a disability awareness advocate in one capacity or another, volunteer professionally, semi-professionally for over 30 years in one direction or another. And it was interesting because I learned about Osprey Village through a friend that I was doing something with in the community. And so I ended up on the board, long story short. And then I ended up on the administrative team a little later on after that. And we were at a point where we needed somebody to kind of coordinate our message to the community, because let's face it, you know, this is where communities come to speak. And so it's important that you do that in an effective way that gets people to understand, you know, what are you all about? And so I stepped into that role, and here I am.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you guys again.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on. But there's a topic we want to talk about where people thinking where the funding is going. Off camera, we're having this conversation. So let's talk to everybody about it. Give them the idea, let's take the confusion away.
Right.
When the funding comes to you, what happens?
Well, for example, if you attend one of our fundraisers, you know, our golf tournament, our Pro Bowl Open up in January, the Sunset Cruise that we have in May, you're basically contributing to operational dollars. You're keeping the lights on. you're paying us. You're paying the staff. You're taking care of the logistics that you need to run essentially a business. This is a nonprofit, but you know, we have financial needs there. That's what you're funding with that. Then, of course, there's also the dollars that we need for the development that we're working on up in Hardyville. It was a part of the East Argent project. That's going to take considerably more. We love the $20 and the $50 that we get from people we've had great responses with the donor letter. We are looking for, though, leaders and visionaries who understand the potential huge long-term impact of this and who are willing to step up and write us the big check. That's what we're looking for in our capital campaign for the village. That's going to take some big bucks, but it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you going about finding those donors, quite frankly?
Well, as I said, and I keep going back to this same thing, we need people who have a sense of vision, who have a sense of really justice, because we're not talking about giving people rights. We're talking about respecting rights that people already have. These people were born with these rights to freedom, choice, opportunity, growth. These people want the same thing that any other adult would want, and they have a right to that. We're not talking about somebody doing a favor. We're saying, how much would you pay to give somebody the same rights that you get to take for granted every day? What's that worth to you on a check? And that's why we want you to send us that. You know, takes a lot of vision, takes a lot of belief. There's going to be, you know, detours. There's going to be things that we may not get right the first time, but that doesn't matter, because if we really see it as a priority, you know, and we have the determination that we had, for example, in the space program, that took a lot of vision and determination. We celebrated the 50th anniversary over the summer. That took vision and leadership, and it took a lot of money, but we did it.
And perseverance.
Yeah.
We did it. You know, a lot of rockets blew up on the launch pad, but we eventually got it right. And that's how people have to think. This is long term. This is vision. This is something that's going to affect people for the, you know, a kid who's going to be born 50 years from now.
You know, and that's I'm so glad you shared that with us, because it's very important for everybody to understand it. Even earlier when I was speaking with David, this is a footprint. You know, this is a new idea. Well, it's an idea that it's needed, but it's being newly executed.
Right.
But with the challenges of being the first one out of the chute, we have fundings. We have to educate people about what we're looking for and how we can go about it. But once you put this footprint together, this can then be taken elsewhere in the country. So we got to help the first guy out of the chute, and that's what you guys are.
We love the fact that our model can be easily replicated in other areas, and that's what we hope happens.
Yeah.
I love getting calls from people who want to do this in their area. It's very exciting, and I get those calls all the time. It's increasing. And it's just wonderful, because people want to take the core of this, maybe add their own spin to it, and put it in their neighborhood. We could have these all over the country, maybe even all over the world someday.
So let me ask you about our neighborhood. How many? What's our population for, you know, the disabilities, with people with disabilities who want to come and be part of this program? What's our numbers?
Well, you know, that's so hard to quantify, because it's kind of, and this is part of the tragedy of it, it's a hidden population.
Yes.
It's a hidden need. It's very hard to come up with numbers. It's hundreds just in Beaufort County alone, to say nothing of what it is in the state. And we want to have a situation where people aren't having to travel 400, 500, 600 miles to get a bed. We want to see it more as a lifestyle. I keep going back to the word lifestyle. That's what we're trying to create, a lifestyle of which the actual physical village is a part and an integral part. We're trying to create a 360-degree lifestyle where people have great housing, safe housing, opportunities for jobs, social opportunities, recreation, all kinds of those great things. Independence, self-determination, choices, everybody wants those. And that's the lifestyle we're trying to create.
Wow. Well, before I'd love to talk more about that, but we have one more thing we want to talk about. There is a big fundraiser coming up.
Absolutely.
And we want to talk to everybody because we love golf tournaments here. And I think this is one way we can give back because it's going to be at Oldfield, right?
Right, yes.
So tell us how we can participate in that.
Yes, there's one thing we love around here, it's our golf. Yes.
For sure.
It's coming up on October 27th.
Okay.
It's going to be, as you said, up at Oldfield Club. And it's our third annual. We're getting really good at this. It's a very popular event. We get a lot of teams and wonderful things. The registration starts at noon. Shotgun start is at 1 o'clock. So we're hoping people come up there. It's $150 per golfer. You can do a whole sponsorship. Businesses out there, you can still do a whole sponsorship for $200. So we hope that you'll participate in that you can call my desk or you can call Julie Coons at a number that you're going to probably have on the screen.
Will be up on the screen.
So get in touch with either one of those if you want to do some sponsorship. There are other sponsorships available as well. So come on out. It's always a great event. You know, we have great food.
Yeah.
Oldfield is a fantastic facility who's been nothing but nice to us since this all started.
Well, I'm excited. Thank you for sharing. Our time has run out. I can't believe it. When we get back, when we come back together, we'll talk some more.
Excellent.
But I want to thank you for joining us. And this is 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.